Are you stashing away cash for a rainy day but unsure if it's enough, or perhaps too much? What if that rainy day turns into a storm, or what if it never comes at all? Let's take a minute to reflect on the story of John, a young professional who found himself in a financial pickle due to an unexpected health crisis. John was at the peak of his career, landing contracts left and right, living a life many would envy. But then, out of the blue, he was hit with a health crisis that put him out of work for several months. The medical bills piled up, and without a steady income, John felt the walls closing in. He hadn't anticipated such a financial blow, and his absence of an emergency fund made the situation even more dire. He found himself in a position where everything felt like an emergency. This scenario, as grim as it sounds, is not uncommon. John's story serves as a reminder of the importance of being financially prepared for unforeseen emergencies. So, what are the key points about emergency fund planning? Well, let's dive into it. First and foremost, it's crucial to distinguish between true emergencies and planned expenses. True emergencies are unforeseen events like car breakdowns, medical emergencies, or sudden job loss. On the other hand, planned expenses like a vacation or a new car are not emergencies. They are predictable costs that can be budgeted for ahead of time. Now let's talk about financial stability. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, every unexpected cost feels like a crisis. But as you gain financial stability, the need for a large emergency fund diminishes. This doesn't mean you should ignore your emergency fund, but rather that you can allocate your resources more strategically. This brings us to our next point: maintenance. Ensuring your car is in good working order and your home is well maintained can significantly reduce the strain on your emergency fund. Regular maintenance can help prevent those surprise repair bills that can throw your budget off track. Now, dissatisfaction with your job might make you want to pile up more money in your emergency fund. But remember, this is a transition issue, not an emergency. It's a good idea to set money aside for a job transition fund. A sum of $10,000 to $20,000 might be a good start, but it's important not to confuse this with your emergency fund. They serve different purposes and should be kept separate. Lastly, we need to talk about the common pitfall of having a single savings account for all purposes. It's like putting all your eggs in one basket. Instead, assign specific jobs or purposes to each savings dollar. This way, you avoid confusion and ensure effective financial planning. To wrap up with a bit of humor, buying a base boat is not an emergency, it's a goal. And goals need clear financial planning separate from your emergency fund. Remember, not everything that feels like an emergency is a true emergency. The better your financial stability, the less strain on your emergency fund. What about events like a job transition, Christmas, or buying a new car? Are these emergencies? Well, no, these are planned events, and they should be treated as such. Enter sinking funds. Sinking funds are a financial planning tool that help you set money aside for specific foreseeable expenses. Want to change jobs? Start a sinking fund. Saving for the holiday season, that's a sinking fund too. Eyeing that shiny new car, you guessed it, sinking fund. The key here is specificity. Each dollar in your sinking fund has a job, a purpose, a destination. This is a far cry from the catch-all approach of a single savings account. Having one big pot of money for everything can lead to confusion, and before you know it, you're dipping into your emergency fund for non-emergencies. Remember this: sinking funds are for expected expenses. They are not your emergency fund. Sinking funds are your financial planning tool for expected expenses. They are not your emergency fund. So, how do you strategically plan your emergency fund? Well, the golden rule is to have 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses tucked away. But the right amount for you hinges on your personal circumstances. A larger cushion might be needed if you're self-employed, have a fluctuating income, or have dependents. Clear financial goals are key. They help you avoid dipping into your emergency fund for non-emergencies. This fund isn't for your dream vacation, a new car, or even that shiny base boat you've been eyeing. Those are planned expenses, not emergencies. Instead, consider creating separate sinking funds for these. Assign a specific job to each dollar you save. This way, you have a safety net for true emergencies and a plan for your other financial goals. Strategic emergency fund planning is about knowing what constitutes a real emergency, having clear financial goals, and assigning specific purposes to each dollar you save. And remember, buying a base boat is not an emergency.